If you've ever brought food to the beach, you may be familiar with the loud cawing of a hovering seagull. These birds have a huge appetite, and in many cases, they're willing to eat just about anything they can get their beaks on. Just how does a seagull eat? Can a seagull go up against a highly feared sea predator? Stay tuned to find out all of these and more, because today we're looking at brutal and shooting ways this bird swallows its prey. Seagulls are notoriously rowdy. These birds are used to living in tourist spots with plenty of people around, so they're no strangers to asking for your plate of fries. Because of this behavior, seagulls have seemed to develop a sort of bravery rarely seen in other birds. This allows them to hover near a group of people as well as attack a small animal in broad daylight. Many seagulls get quite brutal with their hunts, and they really don't mind who's watching. Check out this first clip. Already off to a brutal start as we watch these two seagulls standing around a grassy area. One of the seagulls is hungry for the rabbit near it. What better way to enjoy a meal than to swallow it whole? This rabbit gets picked up rudely by the seagull as the second seagull seems to pay no mind at all to the entire situation. The hungry seagull then tosses the rabbit up and flicks its head back in order to get it into its beak. It attempted to send it down its throat by swallowing, although this rabbit seems to be a bit difficult considering its size. Eventually, the seagull gets it all down head first. Now that was quite a meal, wasn't it? One thing you may notice about a seagull is that it's quite a hungry bird. It's constantly looking for food, and that's because a seagull is able to eat up to 20% of its body weight in food each day. The average seagull weighs just under a kilogram, or about 1.5 pounds. So it's able to eat around 3 ounces of food a day. That may be why seagulls always seem to go for seconds. Now, let's check out this next clip. This shows us just how brutal a seagull can be. In this clip, a seagull is seen violently pecking away at the body of a poor pigeon. It pecks and bites at it, moving it around with no remorse. Then, the seagull feels satisfied with its brutal job and moves on to its next goal, which is, of course, eating the pigeon's dead body. The seagull takes a bite and attempts to adjust the pigeon carefully in its mouth to make the swallowing process easier. It bangs the body into the ground a couple of times and attempts to situate the wings in a way that can help the pigeon's body slide down the seagull's throat. After some effort, the seagull gains some traction and gets the pigeon down its throat. Now this was a horrifying sight to see. Since these birds are always on the lookout for food, we might as well talk about how skillful they are at finding it. A seagull has the incredible ability to detect food from over 5 kilometers, or about 3 miles away. This is thanks to their sense of smell. They are able to detect even the faintest traces of food from this distance. A seagull has sensitive nerve endings inside of their nostrils called Jacobson's organs that help them to smell their next meal and detect where it may be. Now, let's take a look at this next clip right here. You'll see a seagull and a dead fish on the pavement. The seagull doesn't seem all too interested until it begins pecking away at the dead fish. You can see how violently it pecks the fish as the seals begin to fall off the fish's dead body. When the seagull feels ready, it grabs the entire fish and shoves it into its beak head first. The seagull tosses its head back and the fish begins to slide down its throat. The fish is a bit wider than the seagull's mouth, so it doesn't slip down quite as easily as it might have seemed it would. After a few gulps, this seagull's got it down. Seagulls may know where all the best food spots are. That could be because of their amazing memories. A seagull has the ability to remember specific people's faces. Along with that, they're also able to remember where they hid their food days ago. Seagulls can also recognize other seagulls. They can determine whether or not another seagull is a friend or enemy just by the sound of their calls. This memory has led to seagulls developing an advanced facial recognition that'll give your smartphone a run for its money. Time to check out this next clip. Here, you'll see some cute baby seagull chicks. These chicks are being watched by their parent, who's most likely teaching them the ways of the hungry adult seagull. You can see here in this clip how even the youngest seagulls are constantly hungry. These seagulls toss around a small dead animal as they attempt to eat it. They peck at it and drag it around, not quite sure how to deal with it yet. The seagull chicks seem to be playing with it more than they are gulping it down, but the innate brutality is still apparent. Soon, these chicks will know how to swallow their food whole, just like their parents. Like many birds, seagulls are a monogamous species. That means that they'll find one mate for life and stick by their side until the end. Both the male and the female seagull will care for the chicks and share the responsibility of incubating the eggs. They also form close-knit groups called colonies that help them defend against predators that may harm one or more of the members. In some cases, the seagull colonies may drive predators away towards the sea, causing them to drown in a slow and terrifying death. Now, it's time to move on to this next brutal clip. In this clip, you can see a seagull working on something violently. A closer look shows us that the seagull has found itself a squirrel. It takes the squirrel and attacks it first, assuring that it's dead so that it'll be easier to swallow whole. This seagull does a good job at doing this as it pecks at it and drags it around the sandy field. When all appears good, and by good I mean dead, the seagull takes the squirrel's lifeless body and chucks it down its throat, all as another squirrel watches nearby. This whole process happens so quickly because the seagull knew what it needed to do and how effectively to do it. That's one brutal hunter. A seagull's face may look quite blank, but that doesn't mean they have nothing going on in their brain. A seagull is in fact a very intelligent bird. They demonstrate this through their feeding methods. For example, when a seagull is eating a clam or any other type of hard-shelled mollusk, they'll drop them down onto a rocky surface in order to break them open. Seagulls teach this method, along with other methods, to their young in order to pass on the intelligence. Let's now check out this next horrific clip. This seagull stands out in a public space, unafraid to hunt while humans stand nearby, watching in horror. This seagull has its beak gripping a rat, and this rat is pretty huge. The seagull stands on some steps as it attempts to balance its body while chowing down. The seagull spreads its wings as it takes huge gulps in order to get the rat's entire dead body down its throat. This is quite the process, and you can see that when the seagull pauses every few bites in order to readjust or take just a simple breather. This is some hefty effort that is exerted, but it's truly worth it for this vicious exhibitionist seagull. You may already be familiar with the caws of a seagull. It's highly recognizable and nearly synonymous with the relaxing sounds of a beach. To us humans, we may think all the caws sound pretty much the same, but studies have actually shown that seagulls have a highly developed and complex system of communication. This system involves a wide range of vocalization as well as specific body movements. Next time a seagull is speaking, pay attention to what it really might be saying. Now, check out this next clip. Here, a seagull is eating a bit of a peculiar snack. This seagull found a starfish and thought, hey, why not? The shape is quite odd, so the seagull is no doubt having a bit of trouble getting it all the way into its beak, and then all the way down its throat. A fresh starfish like this isn't completely rigid. It's still a bit malleable, and that helps the seagull in initially getting half of the starfish into its mouth. It is the remainder of the starfish that seems to be causing some trouble for the hungry seagull. The seagull holds the starfish, half of its body sticking out of the seagull's mouth, and looks around, possibly thinking of ways to make this meal a bit easier to swallow. In this case, this seagull may have bitten off more than it can chew. Seagulls are excellent hunters and scavengers for food, especially when people are around enjoying a meal. But some gulls have developed a habit of kleptomania. These seagulls have found ways to cleverly steal the catch of other birds. This has become so popular in seagull communities that you may have already witnessed it in action. If you see a seagull hanging around near a pelican, that is because it's preparing to steal its catch. Seagulls know that a pelican needs to drain water from its mouth before swallowing its food. So, when they go to do this, a seagull may swoop in and quickly catch the food that was already in the pelican's mouth. Take a look at this next clip. In it, we see a seagull standing at the shore, attempting to eat something just at the edge of the water. When the seagull moves, we see that it's actually trying to eat a stingray. This oddly shaped and rather large aquatic animal is quite a challenge for the humble seagull. But this seagull is hungry, and it spotted food. So it takes the stingray and shoves it into its mouth. It drops it a couple of times as it tries to figure out the best approach. But on its third attempt, it takes it head first and folds it as it slides down its throat. This happens so fast, you'd be surprised that the seagull even struggled to get it down in the first place. Seagulls are omnivores. These birds eat just about anything that they can get their beaks on, and that's reflected in their natural diet. When seagulls aren't begging beachgoers for the fries or chips, they prey on fish, insects, rodents, reptiles, and other small catches. Because seagulls love to eat, many of them have left the beaches and decided to hang around cities near the water in order to grab more food. Seagulls also have quite a few predators. Some animals that hunt seagulls are raccoons, cats, foxes, and larger birds of prey. Now, take a look at this next clip right here. In it, this seagull stands near a grassy patch. On top of a mound of dirt is a dead rabbit. This rabbit is plump and ready to be eaten by this seagull. The seagull waits a bit before violently grabbing the rabbit. It tosses it around, figuring out how to go about this little challenge. The seagull decides to take the rabbit head first, which seems to be the easiest way to eat prey for a seagull, and tosses it around as it tries to get it to go down the hatch. The seagull tosses its head back while gulping in order to swallow this meal whole. The rabbit gets stuck a few times, but more swallows and gulps help this seagull to get the rabbit all the way down. A seagull colony can be either crowded or roomy. Each colony is different, as seagulls can be quite diverse. A colony may be home to a couple thousand seagulls, or it can be home to just a few pairs. Regardless of the size of the colony, these seagulls vow to stick together and protect each other. As mentioned previously, these colonies will drive away predators in order to protect each other, but the colonies also serve as a safe area to breed. This breeding ground allows seagull couples to incubate their eggs until they are ready to hatch. Take a look at this next clip now. Here, we see a large seagull minding its own business in the middle of a sidewalk filled with people. The seagull isn't spooked or intimidated, no, it's simply hungry. This seagull found a rat to feast on and gets right to it. It takes the rat and violently shakes it as it attempts to slide it into its mouth and down its throat. The rat's body and tail flail around as the seagull easily gets it into its mouth. This seagull seems to be big, so the rat fits well inside of its snug mouth. The seagull enjoys its meal as passerbys watch in horror at the brutality of nature in the middle of a bustling city. A seagull's mating season occurs from April to May. During this time, seagulls begin courting each other. The female seagull will build a nest made out of straw, twigs, grass, and even paper. She'll then lay a couple of eggs and wait 3 weeks for the eggs to hatch. When the eggs hatch, the seagull chicks already begin to rapidly grow. In about 2 months, these babies are already prepared to fly, and in just 3 years, seagulls are already considered fully mature. Now, take a look at this next clip. Here in this one, we see a seagull on a cliff. This seagull is enjoying a fresh meal consisting of a dead puffin. The seagull grabs the dead body and tries its best to get it into its mouth. The seagull appears to be a bit challenged by this plump little puffin body, but it tries anyway. The seagull grabs the puffin and tosses it around and slams it to the ground. It attempts to readjust it so it can fit perfectly into the seagull's mouth, and after a few tries, the puffin is now securely inside of the seagull's mouth. But the next challenge is swallowing this animal. The seagull has to toss its head a few times and gulp it down in order to get the puffin to go down its throat. This takes some time, but after some effort, the seagull eventually gets it. Seagulls may be known for their slow lifestyle, similar to the tourists vacationing in the beach towns these birds frequent, but they're still wild animals, and that means that they have special skills that help them to survive. A seagull can fly at speeds of up to 35.4 kilometers per hour or about 22 miles per hour. This may not be the fastest speed a bird can fly, but compare it to a car on a suburban road and you may get the idea. Now check out this next clip. This seagull has another bird stuck in its mouth. This brutality presents a bit of a difficulty for the seagull, as the small bird's body isn't exactly fit to go inside of a beak and down the throat of a seagull. The seagull drops the small bird's lifeless body and tries again. When it comes to eating, a seagull needs to readjust every so often in order to get the prey to fit just right since it'll be swallowing it whole and not just pecking away at it, grabbing small bits of flesh to munch on. These birds need the food fast, so this seagull works at getting its prey into its mouth. And eventually, it works. The seagull fits the small dead bird in its mouth and swallows it whole. So we've discussed the seagull's diet, but what exactly is their hunting style? Seagulls hunt in many ways. It is nearly impossible to classify them as one way or another. Seagulls know how to hunt for their own food, but they also steal other birds' food. In addition to all of that, seagulls can also be called scavengers since they look for food that may already be dead or discarded. In a general sense, seagulls are opportunistic feeders, meaning that they can adapt to their habitat and find the best way to feed. That sometimes means dumpster diving in the parking lots of a small town. Now, watch this next clip. Here, a seagull is calmly scavenging for some food on the shore of a beach. This seagull got lucky because this shore is littered with small crabs. These bite-sized snacks are perfect for the seagull to munch on, and you can see the ease of this as the seagull walks around and picks up the crabs one by one. While this may seem peaceful, it's still quite brutal, considering the fact that this seagull is grabbing live crabs and swallowing them whole. This buffet featuring live crustacean is no less brutal than a larger seagull killing and swallowing a whole rat. Some people fear seagulls because of how confident they are around humans. While the average seagull simply wants your food and would rather not harm you, larger seagulls may resort to attacking humans if they feel threatened enough. Big seagull species, such as the herring gull or the great black-backed gull, are not afraid to bite, peck, and strike a human when they feel the need to defend their nests. So, if you see a seagull at its nest, you may want to remain a distance away in order to keep all of your fingers intact. Now, take a look at this next clip here. This seagull shows us that these birds love to scour cities for food. This seagull went around Boston and found a large rat. It pays no mind to the people around it as it flies over and inspects the dead rat. It decides to pick it up and try to swallow it whole. It takes some effort, as this rat's quite large. So, the seagull hops onto the roof of someone's car and finishes it off there. Another seagull notices, but this seagull is not giving up its meal and gets the entire rat down its throat quickly. In certain areas, seagulls have become known as quite the nuisance. These birds may damage crops as well as threaten human safety. Seagulls that scavenge in unsanitary places, such as a dumpster, may transmit diseases to humans. They also collide with aircraft more often than any other bird out there. Seagulls will also build their nests on rooftops, turning towns into their own domains. And one of the most well-known factors of seagulls being labeled a nuisance is the fact that they will swoop down and steal the food of any person eating outdoors. Now, it's time for the final clip in this list. This clip shows us a seagull on top of a roof attempting to eat the baby of a dangerous predator. This seagull is eating a baby shark. This attempt at a meal is not only vicious, but it seems to take a bit of time as the seagull needs to find a way to get this long and oddly shaped body into its mouth and down its throat. The seagull appears to know what it's doing, and most importantly, it does so confidently, knowing that it can eat the predator before the predator eats it. While you're here, go ahead and click on one of these two videos on your screen. We'll see you there.